First of all, welcome. I'm really happy you're here. This is the first episode of the series, which is called Walking Arts and Health, and this is brought by WALC. So, in case you're not familiar already, WALC is a Creative Europe project, and it's called Walking Arts and Local Communities. It's Creative Europe funded and has international partners in Greece, in Belgium, France, Spain, and Portugal, and it's been running for some time now, and it will end at the end of 2027. And the goal is to connect local communities through walking arts. So we have a lot of partners, either universities or NGOs, working towards that direction. And in that regard, we also have some online events, which is the one you're attending tonight or today, wherever you are. And yeah, so this is coming from our partner, which is called Walk, Listen, Create. It's the biggest platform on walking arts, and it's co-hosted today by Action Synergy. This is the one I'm coming from. It's an educational NGO. It's based in Athens, Greece, and it has a long expertise in educational projects that merits arts and societies. So yeah, so today the episode is titled. It's the first episode, and it's titled "Walking Arts and Mental Health." And it was rather hard to figure out how we're going to take these episodes because we don't believe in the separation of physical and mental health, but we had to start somewhere. And well, we started from this one. So it stems, this whole series stems from our belief that walking arts must be integrated in mental health. We hear a lot about the physiological benefits of walking, like for the body, and then also it comes for the mind. But we believe that it's important to delve deeper into questions around which bodies have access to public space and how mental health affects the walking experience and the possibility for even taking up walking as a practice for some people. So we don't take for granted that all bodies can walk, or even if they want to walk, that they are able to walk. And this is rather important starting point, and we decided this would be the first conversation around it. So today we have with us, it's 4 panelists, and they bring different practices, different perspectives in this conversation. So we have Alexandra Rodriguez, and she's from the United States. And we have Tricia Enns from Canada, Leon Clowes, I hope I pronounced everything correctly. Also, we have a poll that is coming right to our screens right now. Don't get so bothered. It's just to collect some data. So just click something and yeah, it can proceed. It's just one question. And then we have Alba Sauleda from Spain. So how this is going to go is that we will have 5-minute presentation of each speaker. And then we have some questions that was on the topic of accessibility of space to bodies. And we will have a Q&A. Everything is open for you as well. And we will also do something that is not very traditional in our events, but given the topic that we're discussing today, we invite you to meditate together with Leon, who will be performing the title track of his forthcoming album. It's called Empirical Evidence of the Existence of Angels. He will tell us more about it. So it will be like a 12-minute meditative session for whoever wants to stay around at the end. I know I will need to do that because I feel like it's important to be here. And yeah, so also throughout the meeting, as I said, you're able to share any resources on the chat. We encourage you to share anything you feel like. And yeah, so let's hear it first. We can start the presentation. We can start from Alex, maybe.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Mary, and I'm so excited to get to be in community with you all today. I know it's different times of day for people here. So to introduce myself, I'm Alex Rodriguez. I'm currently in Florida, so United States. I work with the Center for Arts and Medicine. I'm currently a doctoral candidate in public health, and I've been focusing my research for the past 5 years, so even before this, during my master's, at the intersection of arts and mental health. I really value creative practice. I identify as an artist and as a researcher. I really try to center joy in my work. I think a lot of times, especially in health-based spaces, we see deficit-based approaches, trying to understand what's wrong in order to fix communities. And I really, in my work, try to challenge that and try to lean into strengths-based approaches, try to understand what is already really going well and how can we amplify that. And I also really value community-engaged research, so partnering with communities not only at the inception point of designing a research question, but also trying to understand what the needs and assets are all the way through disseminating findings. So that's a little bit about kind of my praxis in this work. As it relates to some of the work that I've been up to, so through my partnership with the Center for Arts and Medicine, I've been able to partner with, we did some CDC vaccine field guides. So the CDC is our health partner for the nation. And so how artists could be partnered with to help promote vaccine confidence, which was a really neat project. And then we also did a mural study actually here in Gainesville, where we had murals across campus to really try to inspire conversation around the vaccine, mobilizing art. And then in addition to that, I've been a National Research and Impact Associate for One H1 Project's Arts for Everybody campaign, and I can put a link to that in the chat if anybody's interested. And that was an 18-city cohort project. And some of the communities, I think, actually have a lot of work that relate back to what this initiative is a part of. But the idea was that each community related arts, and artists, public health practitioners, and municipal leadership to address hyper-localized issues. And a lot of it actually had to do with a lot of communities focused in on mental health and focused in on connection and the value of connection, which I think are maybe some threads that will be coming up. And then most recently with my work, I have been really focusing in on how policy can really help shape infrastructure and systems level change for our spaces. So I think that really relates a lot to this work as well, thinking about how we're able to scale projects and programs that are working well and really have equitable pay for people who are doing this kind of work. And then I've also most recently been a part of the Jameel Arts and Health Lab's WHO report that's coming out in December, looking at it's a policy brief for arts engagement and mental health with youth. So I'm really excited to be here and to see kind of the intersection with arts and mental health as it relates to the walking arts, and honored to be in this community. So I'll pass it off to the next presenter.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tricia. I'm joining all of you from Montreal in Canada, Montreal, Quebec. I am more joining you from the artistic practice point of view. Just for a background of why I'm here, I met Andrew at a Walking as Practice residency in Sweden this summer, and he experienced one of my walks that was about sensing your body and how your body is reacting to different spaces and experiences, somatic experiences you're having. And so thought this might be an interesting conversation to have. So here I am. I am going to share my screen. My practice is also very participatory oriented. I have a hard time doing too much just about me. At some point or another, it gets to a point where you think, well, how do I invite others in? Why does this matter to others? So this is a project that I began in this past winter. It's called Walk Traces Living With. It's inspired by a period of time I had where I was experiencing quite intense chronic nerve pain. This is something I live with all the time, but at this point it was quite bad to the point that all I could really do was walk. And so I would go on these walks. This is a video. In fact, I'm going to stop sharing and share again with my sound because I would like to share the video so I don't have to talk this whole time. Now it's okay. Maybe I can't share the video. We'll see. So this is a video that's about this project. Maybe if I can see Alex in my Zoom. So maybe I'll play it, and if you can hear it, can you give me a thumbs up? Otherwise, I'll just keep talking. All right.
Maps are
amazing.
Tools to navigate place and space. And so in a similar way, this project is navigating my chronic pain. My name is Tricia Enns. I am an artist and designer. My practice often incorporates counter mapping and walking. So counter maps are a type of mapping that are about our relationship to place and the qualitative experience of the place, often related to sensory experience. In this project, I incorporated these counter maps or walked traces, which were lines that I created while walking last winter during a very challenging pain flare-up. Chronic pain or other forms of chronic conditions can feel quite isolating, and so during this time I would exchange voice notes with friends.
I can't imagine what it must be like to be in so much pain and not be able to sleep.
I've been also 3D modeling objects of care. So I've been using Polycams, an app that you can use to scan objects. And then those scans I've been importing into Blender, where I'm just editing the 3D models a little bit. I'm creating these videos, so the objects are moving around in Blender and taking text from last winter that I wrote. I also really wanted it to be, because it's about care, as accessible as possible. And so I made a lot of different pieces so that people can plug into the topic in different ways. There was this zine that I made, and each of the books has 18 of those walks, and there's also a QR code, which...
I'm gonna pause it there. You may notice my mouse is a little ice cream cone. That is part of this project where I teach people how to turn their mice into, but it also causes issues sometimes. Turn their mice into objects of care as well. And in this case, that object is an ice cream cone. So that project has evolved into a collaborative project called Objects of Care, where there's a virtual reality space, which I'll share the link in the chat, which people can visit and navigate through, and participants share objects that represent care to them and share narratives or stories that are associated with those objects. And those there's a 3D scan of those objects, and then the story is captured in an audio file, and those get put into the space so that people can access this landscape whenever they want to reflect on different forms of care. And I will stop there. Thank you so much.
Everyone, my name is Alba. I think today, instead of talking about my artwork, I thought it would be interesting to introduce my framework, in case it would be interesting for anyone. I would like anyway to share a link to a post in WALC Listen Create where I explain better what my artwork is about. Now I don't find the chat, but here it is. So here you can, in another time, you can read more carefully about the artworks. But I think today I'm going to talk about what mud studies are. That's the point of, or the framework of my research. So to introduce or define mud studies, basically mud studies are a point of view or a lens from which we approach knowledge about psychism. It is defined by taking into account the narratives of those called as psychiatric survivors. And as you can read, the main goal is to transform practices, ideas, and oppressive languages into ones that are more human and caring. Now, I'm going to explain its main areas of action, relating them to my practice, just a way to illustrate them. And its first line of action would be reflect on what actually madness is. As we know, the question, who is the mad, is a great topic in literature and culture, and maybe it has no answer, but we can say that definitely madness is not a stone, but maybe a way of thinking that's related to chance. And that's where in my practice, I wander and I find objects as a result of coincidence. Or maybe we could say that madness is also a matter of imagination as a result of associative thoughts. And that's where I connect disciplines or ideas that apparently are not connected with each other. Now, we could talk for hours about what madness is, but to go on, as I said, listening to witnesses is the main definition of this framework. And from this point, it's when I respond to myself that walking, and I understand walking as freedom of movement, can be a way to consider better treatments in psychiatry. More on in a third area, Met studies also look at the experience of groups that are doubly oppressed by madness. And in my case, from a feminine perspective, I try to recreate women's narratives in relation to nature, like searching for the place they describe and then imagining how they were feeling at some point of the landscape. And then finally, the fourth area would be activism, which I integrate by using public space to share these ideas and most of all, to connect with others. In the end, all these ideas come from the belief that madness often results from oppression, and oppression as a social oppression in the sense of the roles or the expectations placed upon us, and also a political oppression in terms of the material conditions that we live under. And especially when non-rational ways of seeing life, and I would say, for example, like visions or intuitions are not accepted. So to close up, and since we are among walk-in artists, I'd like to share with you a recovery tool it was developed by users and that I think it might be interesting for its cartographic sense. That's what we call the Mad Map. And well, I invite you to give to this guide a look. And it's free on the internet, and it was developed by the Icarus project. And well, with this, try to explore the possibilities if a mad map can actually be walked. And well, I think this would be the point, like if walking can become a way to deal with the oppression of our social interactions. And I think this would be all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So being raised by my grandparents in rural England in the 1970s, walking in the countryside was a regular routine which as a child felt terminal and tedious. It was a Sunday afternoon staple along with the saccharine easy listening sounds of Sing Something Simple on BBC Radio 2. Walks and the sedateness of old people's music epitomised what drew me as a visibly gay adolescent to yearn for the excitement of the capital, London. Yet, long before I found my route into addiction recovery 4 years ago, it was walking this city was the tiny crack of light towards finally learning to look after my mental and physical health. I would walk everywhere to tire myself out and to be in touch with the ground beneath my feet and the urban landscape around me. Strolling around London in the day and listening to YouTube guided meditations in the night were the early ways I'd managed the effects of insomnia caused by long entrenched forms of alcohol and drugs as delusory forms of self-medication. So when I finally found my way into the drafty church halls of Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, these habits of walking and meditation were already set up as I opened up to the methods of self-regulation recorded in Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score, and the routes back into the creative practice proposed by Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. I was ready by that point to start becoming well. I began to learn finally at age 51 about how to care for myself. There's much wisdom to be found for anyone who follows any of the 12-step spiritual programs, the origin of which began 90 years ago. We're all addicts of some form and we've all experienced trauma, as Gabor Mate has so eloquently described. But I'll make another claim though. Making arts work has been, for me and for the many others in addiction recovery I've met through the research I've done in this area via co-founding Performing Recovery magazine, it's an essential part of our recovery. Speaking from personal experience, I'd suggest engaging in arts practice has unlocked answers and helped me heal and repair. In embarking on a new multidisciplinary creative practice, the self-discoveries in the early sobriety and my regular attendance at AA meetings has led to 2 multidisciplinary arts projects which continue to evolve today. By walking around London and Margate to photograph sites of shame, as I called them, places I recall embarrassing incidents while I was under the influence of alcohol and or drugs, I captioned these photos and displayed these in a gallery exhibition. In response to the comment of another artist who thought these small images reminded her of beer mats, this then led to an England-wide social practice project where I asked people to commit their guilty moments of alcohol and drug use into queer mats. Finally, this became the Alcoholics Tarot, nuanced one-to-one and small group performance exchanges where I have conversations with others about where, in UK drink and drug taking culture, we draw the line between being an addict and having a good time. I give people alcoholic misfortune tellings, and this often leads to quite profound and intimate conversations. The second project, which I'm going to perform as a sort of anti-guided meditation at the end of today's cafe session, is called The Empirical Evidence of the Existence of Angels. During lockdown, I became more fascinated with alternative spiritualities. These worlds were opened up by YouTube, so I set myself an experiment. For 11 days and 11 hours, drawing on the principle that double figure numbers like 11, 22 are magical master numbers in numerology, I noted the time, place, and location when I saw a feather, as I often would on the streets of London or around my flat at home. Now, while these feathers likely originated from the many pigeons that inhabit our city, or were from household cushions, pillows, or duvets, I took these symbols to be from angels, nudging me to witness and notice my thought at that time, that moment in time. So you'll hear this later in the Anti-Guided Meditation, which is the title track of my debut album about to be released on Navia Records early next year. The randomness and range of thoughts which populate my head form the text. I'm sure that's the case for many of us, though. Initially, though, this project began as a series of watercolours and word paintings, which you can see in this slide here. And as you'll hear in the finished piece, if you stay to the end of the cafe session, I'll leave my talk here and I'll invite suggestions in our discussion on how this Walking Arts Mindfulness project might be adapted for others to take part in as a social practice project.
Thank you, Liam. Thanks, everybody. I am already so moved by what you're doing, and I will start the conversation with the first question. It's all about hard questions tonight, and you are all welcome to answer. Is suffering accepted/acceptable in public space? And is public space safe for those who suffer? How has it been for you and the people you're working with, the communities, or just your personal experience? Can you suffer in public? Is it allowed?
I think, I guess I'll just go, but I think it's socially not allowed. But I think I have gotten better at suffering in public, personally, by, I guess, posing the question, so what? Like, perhaps sometimes we need examples in order to feel like something is okay. And so I personally feel very joyful is the wrong word. It's nice when I see someone crying and having someone hug them in public, or less nice when someone's suffering and no one's helping them if they've fallen and can't get up and no one is helping. But also nice to help them. So it's a complex question, and I think so many of these challenges are rooted in social expectations, I think, and how do we shift those social expectations, which I don't. I'm just going to add that as another question to the question. Yeah.
From an addiction recovery perspective, something we talked about in preparing for tonight is that where I live in central London, on every corner there's a pub, and it's something I refer to in the piece Empirical Evidence of Existence of Angels, in that I was in early recovery when I did that art experiment, and one of the things I noticed was that I was preparing to go to a drinks thing. So I would ring somebody from AA, and there's that thing of being an outsider, having to have this alternative society that is the recovery rooms, the AA rooms, or the Narcotics Anonymous rooms, or whatever, to find that queer support, really, I suppose, in a way. It's kind of the original safe space. I'd kind of make a claim with AA rooms. But these are the perils of being in recovery. I'd still like the smell of beer and the bars on the corner. You know what I mean? It still has that appeal, and it has good associations as much as bad ones. But I know that if I go there, then it's a path I don't really want to go down.
I think also like some threads of community and having shared space with others that can support you have come up. But I think also the built environment and ways in which certain spaces lend themselves to supporting people or having moments of solitude or areas for reflection. There's been some really great work done by Kelsey Zelvor, and I can put it a recent podcast over in the chat in case anyone's interested, but on designing spaces with mental health in mind. And I think that that kind of adds another layer to the environment, kind of building on what Leon was saying as well.
Thank you. Yeah, this is actually very good. So it's not only the society, but even the design of a city or a place that is making us be able to suffer in safety, because definitely there are people who suffer, but they're either unseen or unsafe, which is not the way it should be. And the other question is, we talked about suffering in public space, but which bodies are allowed in public space? I think that what Alba brought up about physical restraint, that's limiting access to bodies, and a lot of the times this physical restraint is enforced to those people, is creating bodies that are not able to even use walking arts, because to be able to do walking arts, you cannot do them in your home. You need public space. You need to be either rural area or an urban area. But what do you have to say, Alba, about this? How is it in your research?
Sure. Well, I'm going to link the question before with this next one, and as for the question of if public space is safe for suffering people, I think I have to say, first of all, that I'm a first person speaker. And well, that means I am not diagnosed, but I had this psychotic episode once. So I learned during this 9 last years, like to recognize the what we call symptoms of what makes me think that I am not good. And I'm going to skip the ones that I had noted, but there is one that is especially delicate become within public space, that and maybe it's the less common with all of you other people, but is the thing is when every conversation in the street or any advertising in the streets or the writing in the streets has to do with you, and it's a constant judgment. I think this when our public space is oriented to spending money on something and of your personal achievements, I think it's the messages that are constantly receiving, that you are constantly receiving are are not oriented to live in a community, and is suffering accepted in public space? Well, of course not, because if all these messages are oriented like to your own responsibility. I mean, I've learned during the last years like to cry in public space, and never ever anyone has come here and say like, what do you need, or do you need to talk, whatever. And also, there is no public space where you can spend your time there without having to spend money for a coffee or whatever. So it has to do with this physical architecture, but also with this relational architecture, and how our messages in this urban space are organized. I'm sorry, I think I lost a little bit the question, because I was mixing answers. But in the end,
it was a very good and important addition regarding the use of public space. We were going to talk about this also
and
later.
restraint. Yeah, well, that's another
Yeah,
question.
but restraint. Yeah.
Shall I continue? Okay. Regarding restraint, I had written down an anecdote from my internment. That is, of course, we were locked up, and every evening, people who couldn't sleep, or who we couldn't sleep, or we couldn't relax, we walked during hours up and down the corridor, like in circles and in line, And with this image, I just try to say that the need for walking and to move freely, I think, is part of our nature. And I believe that locking up and using physical restraint, it's against nature. And another subject is that it has to do with the human resources, sorry, or economical resources, whatever. But of course, it does not help, in my opinion, to feel less oppressed during a crisis. That a crisis, is like feeling out of the game. If you feel out of the game and they push you to be more outside the game, well, it's double worse. So, of course, one of my intentions and first lines of intention is to try to change that. And I think walking and moving freely is that's why I'm here. Actually, like how to, as Leon said, like how can we perform this displacement and this moving freely in a conscious way? So I think that will be my answer. Maybe it's a little bit obvious, but well, it's what I feel.
No, it's not. Yeah, thanks for bringing this perspective, because I think that the experience of like alcohol, or like how drugs are advertised or used or abused in public space. We were discussing about going for a run on Sunday morning and still smelling all of this like alcohol from the previous night, and then seeing shattered glass, and it's just not an image you want to be, even if you may not be an addict, or an addict in active recovery. And also active addiction, sorry. And the other part is about advertisements and how much they take up space in public space, and how much those enhance ideas of, for example, depression and anxiety about body dysmorphia, and where am I in my life, why don't I have this, why am I not successful enough, or something, anything enough, actually. So the thing is, how are we going to walk, how are we going to continue existing in public space when, like, we were saying the other time that Andrew was like, "Oh yeah, I proposed to having a walk where you would be avoiding the pubs or avoiding the places, and that would be a new other map." But how can we actually, how can we do that? How do people how can people be allowed to use space again? Because a lot of the times it's not also the restraint that is imposed on people, it's also self-restrainment. And I discussed this like personally, when I was feeling very agoraphobic, I just restrained myself in my home because it was the safest option for me. But it's not really an option at the end, it's just that I just could not be in public space. So how do we learn to walk or relearn to walk, or how do we exist in public space? If somebody would like to say something on.
I can answer again, maybe, but just because I think that the thing, I don't know the formula or a receipt, but I think the point is like to feel essential in a community. I wrote down also another anecdote, just to bring up reflections. That's the other day, for example, talking to a friend of mine who she's a doctor, and they went to this neo-rural place, and as a doctor, she could tell that this person that had separated from the community, he had that or what label, but the intervention developed by the community was to make him know that he was missed by the community, and to make him come back and make him understand that he was essential in that community. So in the end, he came back, and with no drugs and with no confinement, because he felt part of the community. So my answer to the question, I gotta recall that much, was the importance of feeling part of the community. And I don't know now a specific way of acting, but I think that it should be like regarding this attention to the geographic territory we are, to the people, to our neighbors, to whatever, like making ourselves understand that we are essential in the social circle that we are, no, and that that they miss you, and that you're part of that.
Yes, definitely. Would somebody else like to add something here?
Yeah, I think to build on that, a sense of community and also an invitation to join these spaces, I think is really critical. And I know you spoke of kind of the invitation of other people missing you or reaching out, but I think also, if there are invitations from the way things are built too, I know in some of our conversations leading up to this, I talked about something that's actually exists here locally. We have murals throughout the downtown area that I live in. And there is a walking tour that you can do where at each stop you can dial the number on your phone and it will have an audio of an artist describing what their intention was behind the mural. If it was of someone, they might have them on the audio piece as well. And so I think that invitation can come from community physically who are there and might be ready to speak with people, or it can come from things that are set up to make people feel like they are part of something greater. And I think that that is really important, especially in this moment, because I think, especially coming out of the pandemic, people are really dealing with loneliness and isolation at even higher rates than they had been previously. And the WHO just came out with a report, I believe in September, talking about the impact of social connection on health. And it really has cascading impacts if you don't feel like you are connected with others. And there is really a big difference between, even being social isolation versus loneliness. So even if you are around people, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily connected to them. So I think that having groups, people checking in on you, or having ways to connect with the area around you, I think is really valuable.
I'd just like to come in there as well, actually, and pick up on what both Alba and Alex were saying there, because I thought the point you made, Alba, about the you have to pay to go into somewhere. There's a destination, and then you have to buy a coffee or a beer or there's and Andrew makes the point here as well about in the UK a lot of our libraries have been cut, so there's not really free places to go to at all, actually. Not just in London, but in most of the country. And then what Alex is saying there as well, actually, about the pandemic, because that got me thinking about that time that seemed such a very different world now. That was the time of the pandemic, and the one thing that we could do in this country at that during the height of the lockdowns was that you could go out for an hour to have a walk. And I know that was certainly a focus for mine and so many other people's days, but that was at a no cost kind of thing. So anybody could do it, and there was nothing open, so nothing could be bought anyway, kind of thing. But it just got me thinking really about how uninclusive that is, how not inclusive that is. That there's a cost to going somewhere. Certainly in this city, it's very hard to leave where I am and go out and not be £20 poorer at the end of it, kind of thing.
Yes, definitely. And consumption, yeah, it's just well, meaning that you're there, that you're active. I have a toddler, and trying to go out and not spending anything, it just feels crazy because even they're targeting, like as young as toddlers. So, you cannot escape that from early on. And I like that the conversation went to social isolation and loneliness as Alex brought up, because well, suffering can add a lot, and it can be a very isolating experience, especially when the suffering is internal. Like we were discussing about the series, that like, yeah, if somebody had a cast on their foot and they were trying to go outside for a walk, then you would understand why they're slower, right? Because they have a cast on their foot, and then you would wait for them. But when they don't have something visible, you just feel like, okay, why are they not running like I am, constantly on the streets, because that's the pace of the city. So otherwise somebody needs to be on the side and just kind of like turn themselves invisible, because they don't have the right to claim that space, because they don't function as the other normative bodies are doing at the time. So especially when the suffering is internal and is invisible, in that sense at least, yeah, it gets even more isolating. And I wanted to bring that then to Tricia, because she engages play also. So we heard about community, we heard about open invitations from arts, right? But also she's bringing a perspective of play. Um, that brings ways of shifting how we relate our experience and opening for relation to others. So it offers an opportunity to find the common ground, and can be applied in healthcare system or city streets. So yes, in that sense, what role does play in the journey of recovery?
Yeah, I think play, even relating to the previous question of wondering how do we re-engage with spaces, I think play is such an important part of that by like even using play to you can use it to transform mundanity. You can use it to, you could have a space that has maybe doesn't have murals or whatnot, although I am fortunate to live in a city that does have a lot of murals, but and kind of see the cracks as like in the walls as lines and maps and I lead a lot of walking tours that are very playful and ridiculous. And I am fortunate enough to see at the beginning where people are like, wait, you're asking me to do what? And then and they're like, this is ridiculous. But then by the end, they can't stop collecting like debris and like listening to vents and feeling like all these bizarre things. And I think play is such an important tool to invite us to access the child in all of us. And I think it doesn't get as much credit as it deserves in terms of accessing it throughout our lives because it's not frivolous. It's a really important piece to like move through challenging times, to find connections with others. You know, humor helps us to like better see different perspectives, and I think play is connected in that sense. I feel like I just rambled on because I got excited about play, but yeah, I think play is for me. It was also a very important tool for shifting my perspective, even for a moment when you're in a challenging situation, to reorienting and stepping out of it for a second and be like, oh, wait, this is really silly, or whatever, and then maybe falling back into that challenging situation. But for me, during my painful time, I used play a lot to create different worlds that I could step into. Yeah.
Uh, yes, this worked for me too, by the way. That's how I also overcame agoraphobia by pretending to try to find cards on the street, and then just making a collection. And now I have like a collection with a lot of decks of cards because you just see them randomly on the street. So yeah, and also to bridge it to the what we were discussing before, play is definitely an anti-capitalistic action that you do in in this consumption society, right? Because it's like it's silly, it doesn't have a specific goal, it's not productive, it doesn't bring something of value. So it's characterized like, okay, what are these people doing, collecting stuff from the street or taking a crazy photograph of a pigeon, like or the feather, as like I guess Leon was doing, and start writing something when they see a feather. So yeah, like we are perceived in public space as the I don't know, like the crazy ones then for other reasons. So this is also an interesting thing, um, because it's true. Like, how to escape capitalist notions of recovery when working with mental health, and this is also important to figure out. Also, how do I know if I have recovered, and how do others judge whether I have recovered? Like when we are in public space and we may act a bit crazy, and then we are out of the norm. So but we feel more recovered, we feel more healed, we feel more connected, right, with our bodies and with our emotions. Maybe we play a game, maybe we're with our tribe, and we feel better, but we still are perceived like socially it feels more isolating. um, I don't know if any of you would like to contribute to that, to how is it possible to escape then these capitalist notions, like even these looks, these judgmental looks that you would get on the street while you're doing your practice, where you are with your communities.
I'll chip in if I may. In that recovery is a process, or that's the kind of traditional thinking in it's kind of AA and 12-step circles, that it's an ongoing thing. I don't know where I am on that actually though, because that's very much built from the incredible program that came out of Bill W. and the AA collective, but that was an awfully long time ago, and there's so many more. In terms of addiction recovery, there's so many more different versions of that now, and it's almost a lifestyle actually in lots of ways, and like non-alcoholic beers, and I certainly know that my generation, Generation X, were heavy drinkers, but the younger generation who are like 25 and under, a good quarter of them don't actually drink. So there's a very different kind of social, cultural thing and shift that's going on, and attitudes towards the that is different here. But I still stick with this idea of that we're constantly recovering, aren't we, from whatever our original traumas were, and so I know that certainly rituals of sleep, eat, pray, rest, all of those things are certainly fundamental things I have to carry on and have those regular routines. So I guess my recovery is never over in that way, in that sense.
Yes, definitely. It's an ongoing marathon. And I was
Um,
also, I don't know if Alex would like also to bring something there, because she's working in health. So how does she bring that part in her work, if you want to?
Yeah, I guess I just think so much about some of the data that we've been seeing from our lab about not even just creative practices, but also time spent doing leisure. And I think that that really relates to walking arts more broadly as well. And there was an epidemiological study that came out in partnership with our lab a few years ago that so if you're not familiar with that longitudinal cohort study looking at thousands of people controlling for other variables, and people who engaged in these kind of creative practices or leisure practices over time, over a 10-year period, had a 20% lower odds ratio of developing depression. So, I just also think that these, modalities and practices also really empower people with a resource to, support recovery in ways as well, which I think is really impactful.
Thank you. Would either Tricia or Alba would like to comment something on that? You don't need to. So
Well, I would like
Uh,
to say, oh, sorry, Tricia, go on. Go on about.
do you want to go, Alba, or shall I? Me? Okay. I'm assuming that's what that means. Okay. No, I just wanted to, I guess, go back to the point you made about connecting to like these how like play, but also walking as like anti-capitalist uh, point of views, because I do think walking is like an act that can give you like you can it gives to me, it gives me so many new experiences without spending any money, and I just go for a walk and I see things change, and I can pause and like really hone in on curious texture of the wall. Or maybe I'm fortunate enough to be an artist, so I get fascinated with things differently than perhaps some people who are less in this world do. But I also think everyone's an artist. But just I think more and more like reflecting on, walking is a free way of moving from one place to another. It's also a way that not everyone has access to, whether it's the mobility in terms of your mobility challenges, but also the color of your skin, the type of sexual orientation, your gender presentation. So many factors indicate how we have access to a space and how we do not. And so with that said, like, how do we, I don't know, how do we build cities? Again, going back to the building of it, I used to work as an engineer, so I have that in my head too, is like, how do we build these spaces to allow everyone to have access to this like free way of like shifting your perspective and seeing a curiosity? That's not an answer at all, but here I am sharing more thoughts for you. Okay, go Alba, save me.
Oh, I like it because my reflection is just a sentence as a way of conclusion. Because yes, I really thought that to escape capitalist notions of recovery, I think we could start by escaping the word mental health, because I think mental health only stands for another way of saying production capacity. And that's why they lock us up, or they separate us from the producers, because we're not like producing as much as we were expected. So maybe the point would be start producing less or non-producing, but not that mental health does not exist at all. Just another way of seeing and being with the world and the community, with no difference and no separation, no segregation, whatever. And then maybe to close, I will rescue your question about how do I know if I've recovered. And I will say that I know I have recovered when I feel that I understand the game, the social game, and then I can play it again, and I can decide if to play it or not play it, but now I'm conscious about that. And it also was important to me realizing that I was angry, and that I was angry about the way I was treated, right? But definitely understanding the game, and because then this way you can decide which way you can play it. That's a mode of conclusion.
Yeah, thank you. That is yeah, that is important to be heard, and it's very profound in the sense that it's questioning all of the things that we have established. Like as you're saying, it's not only the language when we're discussing about mental health struggles, mental well-being, etc. But like I think that if we were turning to more indigenous cultures, we would see even the vocabulary is changing. And it has a positive connotation, and these are just different states of mind and being that they are part of who we are. It's just a continuum between body and mind and cosmos, and that's how everything is seen. Because especially with mental health, when we are having all of this psychiatric data and reviews and questionnaires that are ranking, and it's just so hard to get anywhere. Actually, it's just fitting in a box in another box. And yes, a lot of the times people feel comfort knowing that, oh, I have this, or I am diagnosed with something. It provides a sense of relief, because they can then find their own group, right? Because that's what happens. And then they try to find the resources, which is again another community. Um, uh, but it can be a very big trap. So it's important that you also mentioned the mud studies, and that we could also reflect on more critical ways regarding psychiatry. We have approached an hour, and I see the chat is very active, which I'm very happy about. And we are ready to take in questions. We have two questions that are like more open, and we wanted to ask you as well, the audience. So I could go with that, but also please either talk or speak or write in the chat. But there is one question that Leon asked, and he was like, what are ways that people, in parentheses, in addiction, use walking arts as mindful processes to understand emotions and feelings? What methodologies can be used? Because here we presented the methodologies that we are using. I'll leave the question in the chat, because we were thinking that tonight is going to be people who are interested in that, and maybe you actually have to teach us something or something to share about some practice regarding walking arts and mindfulness. So yeah, if you have something to share, you can either reply on the chat, or you're welcome to speak out up. I don't see everybody's faces, so yeah, I give you a minute.
I'll quickly say something. Mary's question about suffering in public, it kind of flabbergasted me because where I live, it's so not accepted. It just where I mainly spend my time, San Diego and New York City, you cannot suffer in public. So something Alex and Alba or Alex talked about creating spaces, and I don't want to take up time. It made me think of so many things, but something Alba said, the whole thing of madness, I thought of places like the famous clinic, I don't even know if it still exists, in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, where the patients could walk in the town. That's the only thing I could think of where there's a community where suffering is accepted in public. But
and still you have the
leave it at
label,
that.
right?
Yes, but at least it's a public space where there's walking and that there's engagement, and like
Yeah,
a mutual understanding that we're gonna be accepting. And then just when we talked about play, I just thought, yeah, it certainly is predicated upon who is able to play. And so many people I see abject on the streets, or my own partner cannot play. So that's ruled out. So anyway.
Can I just ask a potentially devil's advocate question? But what are the indicators of suffering not being accepted in public? How do we know it's not allowed?
Well, in my experience, the police come.
Sure.
That's a very clear example, yes. I guess I was asking because I think a lot of times in my experience, I mean, the design of a space indicates don't do something, but again, there's that connection with like our socialization and habits. And I don't, it's a lot of it has to do with what happens in like what we've been trained to believe to some extent too. Yeah. But police make sense, yeah. I would say it wouldn't be allowed if the police. Yeah.
I was just going to say that although pilgrimage is not thought of as directly as walking art, it is quite often referenced in these cafes. And so I just thought I'd say that it's a very well-known space for people to feel more safe with their mental health, what they might perceive as being a different type of mental health to the norm. And especially if you extend the meaning of mental health to include states of grief, loss after, for example, divorce or death, or change of circumstances and so on. It's very, very common to meet, when you walk along the pilgrimage path, to meet people who are working through a state of mind and body which they don't feel they can inhabit in other walking spaces. So that I was just going to throw that into the mix and just say this is a really fascinating conversation. And also to add to the addiction conversation. My brother recently was in rehab, alcohol rehab, and they had to walk every day. I can't speak on for him. I'm gonna ask him next time I speak to him, now that we've had this conversation. But I know it was hard for him to do that, and that they went out as a group. So whether they were able to be identified, I don't know, and how they felt they were received. But certainly walking was part of the rehabilitation process. It was compulsory daily. Thank you.
All right. Well, I lost you for a minute. I Zoom didn't comply with all of these heavy things, so it took me out. But I'm glad that the conversation is continuing. And were there any questions in the chat, or would somebody like to express a question, or maybe a personal experience, or anything that you would like to share?
Yeah, I've got something kind of building on a bit of kind of what Tamsin was talking about, really. My practice, I do really specific walks, which are almost like personal pilgrimages. And I keep the data of the steps that I take on those and then rewalk them as drawings. So I either walk them as physically the size of my body, as a round and round drawing, or as tiny little pinpricks, so that it's a very meditative process to be able to get back into that state of kind of there's a particular calmness, and I have different mental health things going on, and that's the bit where my calm comes in. So it's kind of keeping that walk and then taking that time again from that walk to repeat it again and again and again. And I think it's quite an interesting thing of the actual process of making and translating sometimes the walks that different artists make. And I'm very process based, very play based as well. So it's that kind of using either found materials to play with, to make afterwards, that almost become like these sort of transitional objects from one place to another. And I think that sort of kind of embodying all those things together is quite an exciting way to kind of extend that walk or express it in some way.
Thank you. I like that. If you have if anything that we could see online, you can share, Jenny, like from your art. Yeah, and I also had another question written, which was for the audience again, and I'm just gonna put it out there because we have touched upon it, but we haven't used the word, this kind of wording, which I also think it's important, that walking outside is a way of reclaiming our sense of belonging. And I think that when walking arts is seen not only for the physiological positive effects that it most definitely has, blood circulation, etc., or mind, but it actually is seen as people claiming the public space and their ability to be in public space and coexist and feel and act and be either positive or negative, or all the rainbow of emotions is allowed to be felt. Then walking art is going to be better integrated into mental health practice. This was supposed to be a question, but I really think that we have already achieved this part of our conclusion to our talk, that it would definitely help. And if you have more comments, I'd be very happy to.
Sorry, Greg, again, I'll just quickly say that the walking as, although I agree with that proposition, where I live, walking as a belonging, this is car culture. There's nobody on the sidewalks where I live. There's nobody that, like, walking is like not almost an accepted way of belonging. And why that is beyond the scope of this gathering, but just throw that out there.
Yeah, no, but it's important, and we were happy that we had people from USA, Canada, and UK and Spain, because we were discussing in our first meeting together that it's such a different reality, especially like maybe you feel even more threatened in when walking outside, when the sidewalks are broken or don't exist, or when it's a car city, pretty much. So yeah, that's something else to take into account. Let us know if there's any more questions or comments or anything you'd like to share. Otherwise, we're going to go to a meditative state, thanks to Leon. All right. Okay, so I will introduce what we're going to do. I remind you, so Leon has a piece that he will be sharing with us. It's 12 minutes long. It's a video and it also has audio as well. And he will be talking, he will be performing. So you're welcome to stay or leave at any time. But we wanted to close up in this way after this discussion. I'm really happy you were here. And that we talked in the chat. It's the first time I talked so much on an event, so I'm happy for that. Thank you for being here, and thank you for caring and for trying and for showing up. Not just here, in general. And yeah, I'll pass it on to Leon.
Mary, a huge thank you to you, and to Alba, Tricia, Alex, and Andrew, just for putting everything together today. I'm just going to first of all check. I mean, I know I did check this before, but can people give me a thumbs up just to let me know that you can hear? I'm just going to play a little bit of this towards the end. Can you hear the music? Can you hear music? Can you let me know?
I can hear it.
That's cool. Great. Okay. It would just be a terrible. It starts quite slowly. So yeah. So I will begin. In mid-August 2021, I began attending Alcoholics Anonymous meetings every day. In parallel with this, throughout lockdown, I developed an interest in alternative spiritualities. So for a period of 11 days and 11 hours in September 2021 on my walks around London and while at home, when I noticed an angel's feather. Some may have been pigeon feathers on the street or duck feathers from duvets or cushions at home. It's hard to differentiate. I noted the time in my head along with the location and time. This was to empirically evidence the existence of angels. Tuesday, 7th of September, 2021. 1200 Longacre. I'm into astrology and all that shit. 1500 Trafalgar Square. Please don't be nice to me, as I will start crying. Wednesday, 8th of September, 2021. 0700 Bow Street. Oh, I love that feeling of the early morning city when people are starting to mill about and you know it's going to be a scorchio day. 900 Marshallia Road. I've blamed employers before. 1300 Lewisham Way. Wonder if Asda sells kettles. Thursday, 9th of September 2021. 1000 Kingsway. It was the finest, it was the finest, it was the finest in the world. Lottie Lenya singing Bilbao song. 10:32 Lewisham DLR station. Bill's dance halls in Bilbao, Bilbao, Bilbao. Lottie Lenya singing Bilbao song. Time not noted, petrol station, Tesco Express. Mo say, don't you know, take me out. Unremembered lyrics to Franz Ferdinand's Take Me Out. 1659, New Cross Road. A feather falls to the floor in front of me. I looked up and there was this angel that I am sure was Archangel Michael. Summer Bacon live in conversation to Bracker Goldsmith on YouTube. Friday, 10th of September, 2021. 1843, Green Park. Do you think I would get arrested if I pissed behind this coffee stand, as it's in sight of the palace? 1909, Serpentine. The last year you saw me on my birthday, I'd seriously had about 3 hours sleep. Saturday, 11th of September, 2021. 0019 my bed, found as I pulled back the duvet. I wasn't thinking anything. 0856 Shaftesbury Avenue. I've got this dis-ease. 11:51 Lewisham DLR station entrance. I feel uncomfortable that I should want to know what it was like to be in his skin, to think I don't feel appalled or disgusted about that or him, and that I feel I should. 12:00 outside Lewisham Retail Park. I really need to meditate. Sunday, 12th of September, 2021. 0857 Shaftesbury Avenue. I wonder what would be a good font. 1040 Earlham Street. It is up to me to stop that family lineage of sexually predatory behaviour. 1053 Tottenham Court Road. I'm concerned with the duality of things. 1124 Tottenham Court Road. Some mistakes were built to last. Listening to George Michael's Freedom 90. 1131 Shaftesbury Avenue. Gee, you made lovely coffee this morning. 1324 Waterloo Road. I'm free to do what I want. Listening to the Soup Dragons, I'm free. 1445 Lewisham Way. Hi, I'm Leon, and I've just got a £5.50 kettle from Asda. 1502 Lewisham Retail Park. Don't look at the carpet, I drew something awful on it. David Bowie, Breaking Glass, Earworm. Monday, 13th of September 2021. 12:37 Waterloo Road. We're alcoholics, of course we are in our own heads. 12:56 New Kent Road. I mean, 51 and to be thinking about risk-taking behaviours. 1843 Waterloo Station toilets. Not quite hitting the high notes, that's all I'm saying. 22:59 home living room floor. Fear is at the beginning. Watching Akuta Bhava Das on YouTube. Tuesday, 14th of September 2021. 09:39, home, bedroom floor. No thanks, I really don't want cocaine. No good for me. 12:41, Fleet Street. Anyway, I don't have to justify this. It is what it is, I am what I am, and that's what I'm doing about it. 14:38, The Cut. Last time I went there, Jay was visiting and I went back for a beer after my jab. 17:25, Bayliss Road. Yes, well, maybe they're right about that, just maybe. 17:59, Bayliss Road. Must remember to call someone from AA before I go to those preview drinks on Thursday, so I'm prepared. 18:30, Old Kent Road. I'm going to be in by about 9:30. I hope that's not going to get in your way. Wednesday, 15th of September 2021. 05:35, home, my bedroom, by the door. Wonder what the connection is with Croatia. 06:59, home, living room, cushion. Perhaps I should go to Lidl twice today, as I've got those vouchers that will expire. 07:24, St Paul's Churchyard. Anyone's persuasion is up for grabs after 5 pints and a couple of lines of coke. 08:52, London Bridge. Well, hello Dolly, listening to Barbara Streisand. 10:26, Thornton Road. I need to remember that sometimes. 17:12, Lewisham Way. What a lovely big yucca plant he's got. 17:32, Lewisham Way. God, the side of that building puts me right into 1988. 17:55, Old Kent Road. Relax your face. Remember how screwed up in pain you only realised Sandra's face was when you saw her laid out in the Chapel of Rest. Thursday, 16th of September 2021. 07:30, home, living room, appears in the air. Honey, I've just seen an angel. Watching Suzanne Greisman giving a YouTube talk, Archangel Michael is real. This story leaves no doubt. 11:28, home, living room, under the sofa. Thanks, honey. Let's see how I get on finding homes for my stuff. WhatsApp message from E to me. At 12:11, bedroom, bottom of mattress. To be honest, I don't really want to go. 20:58, Ludgate Hill. What started as terrible turned out to what could possibly be one of the most beautiful days of my life. Friday, 17th of September 2021. 06:39, home, bedroom, under the bed. I should make CDs and sell them. 10:12, Mill Street. That's fine. You are welcome to touch more than my feet. 10:21, Jamaica Road. It's because I walk every day. 10:29, Southwark Park. Really shouldn't drink tea before walking in. 11:50, New Cross Road. Will there be a message for it? 2130 Russell Street. I don't know where I'm going. Thank you.
I very much enjoyed these comments, yeah, and the powerful conversation. It's true. I also appreciate very much that the courage of the people who spoke today and who were here with us to share. And I hope it inspires other people as well.